On a Saturday afternoon in late spring, a 24-year-old woman from Bradenton was driving west on Interstate 4 through Volusia County, Florida. She was somewhere near mile marker 115, just west of Orange Camp Road, in the flat green stretch of central Florida where the highway runs between pine stands and drainage ditches and very little else. It was daylight. The road was dry. There was no fog, no storm, no ice, no darkness, no curve, no cliff, no reason for anyone driving past her to have thought anything at all. For a reason the Florida Highway Patrol was never able to establish, her car left the right side of the roadway. It struck the support pole of an overhead travel sign. She was pronounced dead at the scene. There was no second vehicle. Nobody hit her. She did not swerve to avoid anything anyone could identify. She was not fleeing a crash or racing another driver. She was one person in one car on a straight, wide, modern American interstate in the middle of the day, and then she was not. Read the report, and you will notice how little there is to hold on to. A vehicle ran off the road for an unknown reason. That is the entire explanation. The investigation stayed open, and the answer, if there ever was one, belonged only to her. This is not an unusual story on this particular road. On Interstate 4, it is close to a weekly one. Because the 132 miles of Interstate 4 that carry you from Tampa across the middle of Florida to Daytona Beach have been measured repeatedly by separate analysts using separate methods across separate years as the deadliest stretch of interstate highway in the United States. Not one of the deadliest. Measured by deaths for every mile of road, the deadliest. And the strangest part of that fact is where those 132 miles go. They do not cross a desert. They do not climb a mountain pass. They do not hug a cliff above the ocean. They run directly past the front gates of Walt Disney World. Let me be precise about the claim, because precision is the whole point here. In one analysis, researchers took fatality data collected by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration across the numbered and interstate highway systems of the entire country, covering the years 2016 through 2019, and ranked every highway in America by traffic deaths for every mile of road. Interstate 4 came out first with 1.134 deaths per mile and more than 150 people killed across those 4 years. It was the only highway in the top 25 with a rate above a single death per mile. 4 separate Florida interstates landed in that top 10. A more recent analysis pulled federal crash records covering 2019 through 2023 and ran the ranking again. Interstate 4 came back first, at 1.54 fatal crashes per mile. Higher than before, not lower. A third study, using the same federal crash data, put it a different way. Roughly 34 fatal crashes for every 100 miles of road. Same conclusion, same road at the top. Now here's the honest qualification, because this road does not need any exaggeration and the numbers get misused constantly. Interstate 4 is not the highway where the most people die. That distinction belongs to Interstate 10, which recorded close to 2,000 deaths across those same recent years. But Interstate 10 runs 2,460 miles, from the Pacific Ocean in California to the Atlantic in Jacksonville. Interstate 95 runs 1,900 miles up the East Coast and takes more than 200 lives in an average year. Both of those roads kill more people in total than Interstate 4 does, for the simple reason that both of them are enormously longer. Interstate 4 is 132 miles. It does not leave the state of Florida. It does not even reach either coast at both ends in the way the great transcontinental routes do. And within its own short length, it concentrates death at a rate no other interstate in America matches. One more piece of honesty. These rankings are not published by the federal government. They are analyses built by insurance companies, safety researchers, and law firms on top of federal crash data. And the exact figure they produce shifts depending on which years they choose and how they define a highway. An older study using a different window from a different analyst named Interstate 5 on the West Coast instead. Methodology matters, and anyone who tells you there is one single official answer is selling you something. But strip all of that away and a pattern survives every version of the count. Over and over, across different years and different methods, this one short highway in the middle of Florida rises to the top and stays there. Sit with how strange that is. When an American pictures a dangerous road, they picture something that looks dangerous. Switchbacks with no guardrail, a mountain pass in a blizzard, a gravel track in Alaska with 300 miles between fuel stops. Something that announces itself. Interstate 4 announces nothing. It is 8 lanes wide in places, freshly paved through its busiest stretch, lit at the interchanges, patrolled, signed, and flanked for miles by outlet malls and chain hotels and billboards for water parks. It is one of the most photographed corridors in American tourism, in the sense that millions of vacation photographs have been taken within a mile of it. Roughly 200,000 vehicles travel it on an ordinary weekday. A large share of them are driven by people who have never driven it before in their lives, in cars they picked up at an airport counter 2 hours earlier, looking for an exit number they wrote on their phone. A road through the most visited tourist region in the United States, killing at a higher rate than any road through any desert or mountain range in the country. To understand why, you have to start with when it was built and what it was built to hold. Interstate 4 opened to traffic in 1963. Central Florida in 1963 was a different place entirely. Walt Disney World did not exist and would not open for another 8 years. Orlando was a modest inland city best known for citrus. The engineers who laid out the route designed it, according to figures cited for decades since, to carry something in the region of 80,000 vehicles a day. 80,000. Today the number is closer to 200,000. That gap is the foundation of everything that follows. Not a design flaw in the sense of a mistake, but a design intended for a version of Florida that stopped existing almost immediately. Disney opened in 1971. Universal followed. SeaWorld, the convention centers, the outlet corridors, the vacation home developments. The entire economy of Central Florida assembled itself along one highway that had already been drawn. And here's the part that turns a capacity problem into a fatality problem. In Central Florida, there is no meaningful alternative. Interstate 4 is the only interstate that crosses the peninsula through the middle. If you're moving between Tampa and Orlando, or Orlando and Daytona, or driving freight from the Gulf side to the Atlantic side, you are on it. Local commuters, long-haul trucks, tourists, hospitality workers on shift change, and families towing boats all share the same lanes at the same time, because there is nowhere else for any of them to be. Picture the drive the way millions of people actually make it. You come out of Tampa on the west end where the road threads through the urban interchange with Interstate 275 and traffic is already dense. Analysts have flagged the Tampa end and the section through Plant City as among the worst on the entire route. Then you head east across the middle of the state. Plant City, Lakeland, Polk County, where the land flattens out and the development's thin and the road runs long and open enough that your speed creeps upward without you deciding anything. Then the corridor tightens again as you approach the attractions. This is the stretch between Lakeland and Walt Disney World that the same analysts identify as one of the deadliest sections of the deadliest interstate in the country. Exit signs come faster here. Lanes multiply and then drop away. Traffic that was flowing at 75 miles an hour compresses without warning into a wall of brake lights because someone 400 yards ahead has just realized this was their exit. You pass the theme parks. You pass Sand Lake Road and Kirkman Road, through the tourist core, past hotels with water slides visible from the highway. Then downtown Orlando and the interchange with State Road 408, one of the most heavily traveled interchanges on the corridor. North of the city, the road opens up again. Altamonte Springs, Longwood, Sanford, where Interstate 4 crosses the St. Johns River near Lake Monroe. Then Deltona and the long final run through Volusia County to Daytona Beach and the ocean. Remember these names? Every one of them has crashes behind it. And there is a good chance you have already driven this. If you have ever flown into Orlando and rented a car, or taken your family to the parks, or driven from Tampa to the beach on a summer weekend, you have been on this road. You know the exact feeling of it. The exits arriving faster than you can read them. The lane you need being 3 lanes over. The stretch of open highway where everyone around you is doing 80 and it feels completely normal. Before we get to why the road actually kills, we need to deal with the story that has been told about it for 60 years, because it is the most famous thing about this highway, and it is almost certainly not true. There is a quarter-mile stretch of Interstate 4 near Sanford, at the southern end of the bridge over the St. Johns River, that has been known for decades as the Dead Zone. The story, popularized by a Sanford-born author in a book of Florida folklore, goes like this. In the 1880s, a small Roman Catholic settlement called St. Joseph's Colony was established on that land. In 1887, a yellow fever outbreak killed 4 German immigrants there. The only priest was away in Tampa, so the 4 were buried in the woods without last rites. The colony failed and emptied out. Decades later, when the state bought the land for the new highway, officials are said to have intended to move the graves and instead paved over them. Then the ornaments get added. Hurricane Donna made landfall on September 10, 1960, and tore across the region, damaging the construction site badly enough to halt work for months. On the day this section of the highway opened in 1963, a truck jackknifed at that exact spot, and the driver was killed. Ever since, drivers have reported radio interference, dropped calls, glowing lights, figures at the roadside. It is a genuinely good ghost story. It has been repeated by news stations, travel sites, and paranormal guides for 60 years. And in 2025, a coordinator at the Museum of Seminole County History offered a different account. He suggested the author had invented the curse as a small private act of revenge, because the state had taken the land from his family. County records from 1959 show that the state paid just over $7,000 for a parcel partly owned by the author's own father, acquired through eminent domain. The father, according to that account, never forgave them. Neither did the son. The patchy cell reception, the museum coordinator noted, is simply what happens on that stretch of rural highway. So the most famous explanation for why this road kills people is, in all likelihood, a grudge dressed up as a haunting. The road does not need a ghost story. What is actually happening out there is worse, because it is entirely mechanical, entirely documented, and entirely repeatable. Start with who is driving. On most dangerous American roads, the drivers are locals or professionals. On this one, an enormous share of the traffic at any given moment consists of people operating an unfamiliar vehicle on an unfamiliar road in an unfamiliar state, navigating by phone, with children in the back, at the end of a travel day that began in another time zone. They are not reckless. They are overloaded. They are performing 3 demanding tasks at once, in traffic moving at 75 miles an hour, and one of those tasks is figuring out which of the 4 lanes they need. The single most dangerous thing a driver can be on a crowded, high-speed road is uncertain, and this road manufactures uncertainty by design. Exits arrive close together. Some of them leave from the left. Lanes weave and merge and vanish. Signage that makes complete sense to a Lakeland commuter is a wall of noise to someone who landed 90 minutes ago. Now stack the locals on top of that. Central Florida commuters drive this road every single day and have long since stopped being frightened of it. They know which lane clears, where the patrol cars sit, how fast they can actually go. During the reconstruction of the corridor, contractors measured average speeds through downtown Orlando at 60 to 80 miles an hour, on a stretch posted at 50. So you have 2 populations sharing the same asphalt. One is hesitant, slow, and about to brake for an exit. The other is confident, fast, and expecting everyone to keep moving. The speed difference between them is not a nuisance. It is the mechanism. Now add volume, because volume is what turns a small mistake into a mass casualty event. At 200,000 vehicles a day, there is no slack in this system. On an empty road, a driver who brakes hard creates a problem for one car. Here, a single hesitation propagates backward through hundreds of vehicles at once, and every driver in that chain has less room and less time than the one ahead. Rear-end collisions and side impact collisions dominate the crash records. Rollovers follow, because the correction a panicking driver makes at speed is almost always too much. And when the visibility goes, this stops being a metaphor. In 2008, near Polk City, thick fog combined with smoke drifting across the highway from a controlled burn. Drivers entered the wall at highway speed with no warning that it was there. Roughly 70 vehicles crashed into each other. 4 people were killed and 38 were injured. 70 vehicles. Not because anyone was drunk or racing, but because 132 miles of highway carrying 200,000 vehicles a day cannot absorb the sudden disappearance of the road ahead. Florida produces fog on cool mornings over wet ground, which describes a great deal of central Florida for much of the year, and it produces smoke from land management burns, and the highway runs straight through both. Then there are the wrong-way drivers, which have become close to a signature of this corridor. In the first week of January 2024 alone, Central Florida recorded 11 fatal crashes, 3 of them involving wrong-way drivers. Over the preceding 3 months, local news had covered at least 6 serious wrong-way crashes in the region, and all but one of them killed somebody. One of those tells you almost everything about the mechanism. Late in October 2023, a 26-year-old man was riding home in a rideshare car on Interstate 4 in Seminole County at around 7 in the morning. A driver came at them the wrong way and hit the car head-on. Everyone involved survived, which is close to a miracle, but he required multiple emergency surgeries. When the Florida Highway Patrol interviewed the wrong-way driver, she told them she had fallen asleep at the wheel and had no memory of driving the wrong way at all. That is the thing worth understanding. The wrong-way driver on this road is not usually someone making a decision. She is someone whose brain has already stopped participating, on a corridor with dozens of ramps, heavy signage, and constantly shifting traffic patterns, where a confused or exhausted driver has an enormous number of opportunities to enter the highway pointed at everyone else. Which brings us to what the state of Florida did about all of this, and what happened next. In February 2015, construction began on a project called Interstate 4 Ultimate. It was, by any measure, one of the most ambitious urban highway rebuilds ever attempted in the United States. 21 miles of highway through Orlando, from west of Kirkman Road to east of State Road 434 in Longwood, torn out and rebuilt. More than 140 bridges replaced. 4 new tolled express lanes added. Major interchanges reconstructed. The cost was $2.3 billion, with the total project value recorded by the federal government at closer to $2.9 billion. It was delivered as a public-private partnership, with a consortium called Interstate 4 Mobility Partners designing, building, financing, operating, and maintaining the road, backed by a federal loan of roughly $949 million. And the safety case was made explicitly, in writing, in the federal project record. Wider shoulders, left-hand exits removed, weaving sections eliminated, interchange signaling improved. The stated estimate was that these changes would reduce the number of crashes by 13%. That is the promise. Here's the record of how it went. By July 2018, a ratings agency had revised the project outlook from stable to negative, citing an estimated 245-day delay against the original completion date, a request from the consortium for an additional $100 million in compensation, and what the agency described as a high level of accumulated non-compliance points. 3 members of Congress from Central Florida wrote to the Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation that same month, saying it was very problematic that the project was both behind schedule and over budget, and asking what the department planned to do about it. Meanwhile, during construction, the Orlando Sentinel reported that the chance of crashing on Interstate 4 had risen by 12%, with injury and fatality rates rising as well. Narrowed lanes, shifted lanes, closed and altered exits, and years of changing traffic patterns did to drivers exactly what you would expect. The project reached substantial completion in February 2022, roughly 7 years after it began. It went on to become the first infrastructure project in Florida and the first major interstate project in the United States to receive Envision Platinum certification. It won an honor award from the American Society of Civil Engineers, cited for its safety, efficiency, and aesthetic enhancements. In April 2026, one of the 2 equity partners sold its entire 50% stake for around $75 million. And the federal crash data covering 2019 through 2023, which overlaps the completion of that work, still ranks Interstate 4 as the deadliest interstate in America by fatal crashes per mile. At 1.54, a higher figure than the earlier study produced. $2.3 billion, 21 miles, 140 bridges, a projected 13% reduction in crashes, a platinum certification and a national safety award, and a road that is still, by the measure that matters, first in the country. There is one crash that sits inside all of this in a way that is hard to look away from. On the 12th of March, 2024, a 21-year-old man from Orlando was killed in a head-on collision on the westbound exit ramp from Interstate 4 to Sand Lake Road. A driver had come up the ramp the wrong way. A 53-year-old woman in the other vehicle was hospitalized with serious injuries. The interchange was new. The traffic pattern there had been changed over the preceding weekend, part of a diverging diamond interchange being built through the tourist corridor. The Florida Department of Transportation issued a statement. It said the department was deeply saddened and sent its condolences to the family. It said that safety is the department's top priority. And it said that, as with any new traffic pattern on projects, the department closely monitors traffic and drivers' reactions to the new changes to understand whether any changes or tweaks to conditions are necessary. Read that last sentence again and notice what it is describing. The monitoring happens after the pattern opens. The driver's reactions are the data. Let me put faces back on the numbers one more time, because the numbers keep swallowing people. In October 2025, near Deltona in Volusia County, a crash on Interstate 4 killed 3 people, and the driver responsible left the scene. The Florida Highway Patrol arrested a woman for it. She spent nearly 2 weeks in jail. Investigators then determined that she had no involvement in the crash whatsoever. Prosecutors filed no charges. A different suspect was later arrested and held without bond. The woman who spent 13 days in a cell for a crash she had nothing to do with has filed a lawsuit against the Florida Highway Patrol. 3 people died. A 4th person's life was taken apart by the investigation into their deaths. And the road carried 200,000 vehicles the next morning as though none of it had happened. Here is what all of it comes down to. The desert kills people by being empty. The mountain pass kills people by being narrow. Interstate 4 kills people by being ordinary. It is wide. It is new through its busiest stretch. It is well lit and heavily patrolled and lined with the least threatening scenery in America. Millions of people drive it every year on their way to a theme park and arrive completely fine. And every one of those uneventful trips teaches the next driver that there is nothing here to respect. The road was drawn in an era that ended 8 years after it opened, and then the busiest tourism economy in the country was built along its shoulders, and the traffic multiplied by 2.5, and the only real fix ever attempted cost $2.5 billion, took 7 years, promised a 13% reduction in crashes, won a platinum certification, and left the road first in the nation. Nobody set out to build the deadliest interstate in America next to Walt Disney World. It assembled itself, one reasonable decision at a time, over 60 years. So if you are the one making this drive, and tens of millions of you will be, treat it as what it is rather than what it looks like. Know your exit before you need it, and be in that lane early. The single most dangerous thing you can do on this road is make a late decision. Leave a gap you would be embarrassed by. On a road where 100 cars can stop at once, following distance is the only thing you actually control. Do not trust an open stretch. The traffic on this highway can go from 80 miles per hour to fully stopped in the space of one gentle rise. If you hit fog or smoke, get your speed down before you are inside it, not after. And if you are driving it tired at the end of a long travel day or the end of a long shift, understand that the ramps on this corridor have put drivers onto this highway facing the wrong way while they were asleep at the wheel and never knew it. Come back one last time to that Saturday afternoon in Volusia County. Mile marker 115. A 24-year-old woman driving west on a dry road in clear daylight with no other car involved, on the flattest and least frightening stretch of highway you could imagine. Her car ran off the right side of the road for an unknown reason and struck the pole holding up a sign. She was not a statistic when she got in the car that morning. There is no ghost story attached to mile marker 115, no colony, no yellow fever, no paved over graves. There is just a road that was designed for 80,000 vehicles a day, an estate that grew into 200,000, and a rebuild that cost $2.5 billion and won an award for safety. You will probably drive it someday. Maybe you already have. It will feel like nothing at all. That is exactly what it felt like to her.